Hello and welcome to the Ladies' Breakfast. Thank you so much for joining us. We are thrilled to have you here and we hope that you are really, really well. If you're new, welcome as well. We would love to meet you face to face as soon as we can, as soon as that is possible. It's colder outside. The lockdown tan has faded. And as you can see, the jumper is now on because I feel the cold. So jumpers are definitely on, warm layers are on too. I've been thinking the other day, what is it that I miss now? And I miss our discipleship together, and I miss just worshipping with you and being side by side with you on a Sunday morning and worshipping en masse. Isn't there? There is something about it, isn't it? There really is. But of course, we must always remind ourselves that God has no limits. So I have a word for you. I have a word for you all. And it is this morning. He is calling us into a deeper relationship with him. And through love and obedience, we gain access to the joy. Even when we don't feel like, even when we don't feel joyful, we gain access to the joy through his love and through being obedient. And it's described beautifully in John 15 for us as well, and shown and demonstrated to us by Jesus too, when he says, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. What do we feel about that word, obedience? It's got some dodgy connotations, hasn't it? When you say the word obedience, what do you think of? Do you think of, what pops to mind? Maybe submission or conformity or rules. Who likes those things? I'm not too keen. What do we think about when we think about obedience? Maybe the suffragette in you. Maybe it bursts out and you start cutting up bras and all sorts of things. So just have a little think about what that word means for you. But obedience actually in the Bible is described as love. It's something we do and it's out of love. And submitting all to him that gains us the joy and also, really importantly, makes us his disciples too, being obedient to him and his commands. And as his disciples, we are his platform to display himself to the world, people like you and people like you and people like me. And if you know Jesus, he's always calling us into unknown waters, into unknown territory. And to go deeper with him. That's what a life with Jesus is all about. It's just putting one foot in front of the other. And maybe stepping out and being full of the faith feels quite tough. Especially at the moment, just finding that joy and finding that enthusiasm. If so, if it does, just perhaps try obedience and see what happens. Because the conversation goes like this, doesn't it? It goes, I'm not sure what you're getting at, Jesus. I don't know if that's a little bit, out of my comfort zone. I'm not sure about what you're asking me to do, what you're prompting me to do, and what you've put in me to do. I don't know about that. But you know what? Because you say so, Jesus, and I trust in you, let's give it a go. And it's just one foot in front of the other and responding to the call. That is obedience, and it's not necessarily knowing all the ins and outs and the if, the buts and the maybes. It's just responding to that prompt and responding to the call. So what are we called to do? Well, we're called to share the good news, aren't we? To share the good news to people around us. And I absolutely love getting a tiny little bit of good news, especially at the moment. I really do. I feel like when you hear something that's so good, it's the most amazing thing. And the other day at work, what it was for me, sounds really daft, but what it was for me was the sauna and the steam room opened at work. And I was so happy. It was like, I just felt so lit up by this little bit of news, that something had happened that meant we were moving forward with something. It was progress. I was like, yes, we're going in the right direction. And I don't even use it, but I felt happy for it, And what insignificant comparison is that to, what truth we know in Jesus? That was almost the enthusiasm that I think, that's the enthusiasm I need for life at the moment, when no one has anything good to say and we still do, and we know what that is, and we can apply that in our day-to-day interactions with each other, even when we don't feel like it. A large part of obedience, of course, is stepping out and going beyond our emotions and what we feel like at the time. That's what makes us people, our decisions and our actions, not how we feel and emotions. So I compare a calling, or I compare a call to obedience a little bit like stepping into water on the beach, if you like, where it starts off nice and shallow and it slowly gets scarier and scarier the deeper you go. And with water, of course, you've got 4 levels of depth, haven't you? You've got ankle depth, nice and shallow, nothing too scary at this point. Knee depth. Now let me tell you something about knee depth. It doesn't sound very deep, but we went to a water park one year, and there was the most enormous tidal wave machine, literally an absolute monster of a tidal wave would come, and people would stand there and they'd sort of get in as deep as they can. This tidal wave came and they'd all sort of, arms and legs all over the place. Anyways, playing the safe card, I took Imogen down to into the water, but I was like, knee depth, we'll be fine, we'll be absolutely fine. The water came in, bang, it hit us at knee depth, and it took both of us off our feet, straight up in the air, under the water. Various items of swimwear kind of maneuvered themselves around my body. I had issues at the front, I had issues at the back, it was all over the place. So even at knee depth, it's surprising how you can be moved and how the water can hit you like that. Moving up the body, hips. Now, what is it like when you step into even stepping into a swimming pool, and the water, if it's cold, hits the hips, then it's hitting your core, and it sort of takes your breath away. Very significant if it's cold, of course. And then your last level of depth is here, isn't it? Sort of this kind of fully, not quite head under, but fully submerged. You've got 3 options then, haven't you? You've got sink, swim, or tread water, and that's when the big challenges come along, and that can feel quite scary. We can feel out of our depth. But of course, we cannot miss the significance with these 4 levels of it. If the water is cold. If the water is cold, why is that important? It's important because if the water is warm and it's lovely, and I've got a little lilo, and it's South Pacific Sea and there's a couple of tropical fish swimming around, a cocktail in hand, wonderful. That's really, really nice. That's comfort. That's a lovely place to be. Very calm and inviting. I don't mind that too much. But who in their right mind wants to get into the North Atlantic in January and go for a swim when it's choppy? It's not as inviting, is it? But I'm sure some of you could, or some of you would, because you're nuts. I know you would. But it's not for me. It's not as inviting, is it? So there's that thing in the cold water too. And my point is here, it's easy to obey and to exercise faith when things are rosy and we're in our comfort zones and everything's going really well and the water is calm. Or maybe you've stepped out before and it hasn't actually gone that well, and you feel like you've had your fingers burnt and it hasn't gone to plan. Another story happens to be about water. Me and Martin decided to try surfing one year on the Cornish coast. We were staying at a campsite. We didn't go specifically there to surf, but we were staying at the campsite. We went down to this little beach hut. We hired out, wetsuits, boards. We had all the gear, no idea, no instructor, nothing, but we were feeling confident and we thought, yeah, we'll be fine. It took me 20 minutes to shoehorn myself into this child-sized wetsuit. I even zipped it up wrong. So after 20 minutes, I then realised I've got this on the wrong way around. I'd zipped it up like a cat suit, where apparently it's meant to be at the back, and I'd zipped it up at the front, like a onesie. Completely wrong. So then that's another 20 minutes getting that out. Martin also got himself into a swimsuit. He looked much better than me. Why do men always look much better than me in swimsuits? Who knows? But yeah, so we got into these swimsuits, down to the beach. The board was so big, I was sort of dragging it along, jumped in, and this wave came, and I thought at that point, yeah, that surfing's not happening. So I sort of thought, right, let's knock it down a peg or two. Let's jump on it like it's a bodyboard. So we jumped on, but unfortunately, this wave, it took the pair of us with it, and we kind of ended up going underneath it, and it sort of dragged us along, dragged us back into the shoreline. Not that we were that deep anyways, I think it was here. Dragged us right back into the shoreline, and the beach just happened to be very, very rocky and sharp and nasty, and we came in, and as we were sort of all over the place, we both got dragged along our faces in these rocks, arms and legs all over the place, and we kind of landed like a pair of sort of walruses or seals on this beach. You know, Martin was about half a kilometre that way, and we sort of said, "Oh, you're okay? Yeah, I'm fine." You know, cuts all over our faces, and I thought, I'm done. I'm getting out. I'm not going back in there. I look ridiculous. The lifeguards didn't even get up. They didn't even see it as an emergency. They just sort of laughed at us, really. You know, pointing and laughing. It's probably the most exciting thing that happened all day. So yes, we got up. I thought, I'm done with that. I'm not going back in there. I'm not having that happen again. And I grabbed my stuff, dragged the surfboard back out, took all the gear off. It had actually taken me longer to put the gear on than it did when I was in the water. So onto the shoreline, I took all the gear off. I thought, I'm not going back in. So I never harboured that skill. Funny enough, never ever harboured that skill. Everything with this talk seems to be some kind of embarrassment linked to water. Maybe God's trying to tell me something. I don't know. But you know, the more we jump back in when things haven't quite gone according to plan, and the more we say yes to him, even with these hiccups along the way and some bad experiences, we do actually exercise obedience. Okay, we exercise that obedience, and obedience, not only does it give us, that joy, we actually grow more as people. We grow more, and the skill gets better, because it's easy to say. It's easy to say yes when the situation suits us and it's inviting. We understand it, and it's convenient as well, and we agree with it. Much easier to say yes when those things fall into line, and of course when you're not a novice surfer. It makes me think, what challenges me? What really challenges me? And I think, if I have to admit, what challenges me is an interruption of having a nice time in the shallows, because we like having a nice time in the shallows. It's lovely, dipping in and out. And it's a challenge to go deeper. You almost have to change something, don't you? It might be a change of routine, and there's that challenge to kind of step into the deep. Or when, particularly when he asks me to change something, maybe something about me, something I'm doing that I need to alter slightly. There's that saying, isn't there? Don't like change. Unless my boss is in the room, and I absolutely love change. I embrace the change. But deep down, we know, don't like change. And when we are called to do stuff, sometimes we do have to change things, and we have to set things aside in order to go deeper, and to be obedient to what he's asking us to do, whatever that might be. Because the conversation, it goes like this, doesn't it? The conversation is, Jesus, I'll do that thing that you're asking me to do, after the school run on Friday, or maybe when I have a little bit more of the dingo dollar, when I've got the cash. Yeah, I'll do it then, Jesus. Or I'll do it once the kids are in bed, because they're making loads of noise and they're driving me crazy. Or I'll do it after my lunch, because I'm feeling a bit hungry right now. In the middle of the night, it's a much more serious conversation. So in the middle of the night, it's a bit more like this. It's kind of, Jesus, I'm an introvert, and I don't know if I have the character traits who you're looking for. Please ask someone else. Or give me a sign, Jesus, and then I'll do it. Please appear in a big puff of smoke in the lounge in front of me right now. And we pray that, don't we? Don't we pray? When we're challenged on something, to do something, we pray, make the path clear, or give me a sign. But if you're called by God to do something, just remind yourself that the call itself is a sign, because he will only ever ask you to do what he's already put in you to do. So the call itself is a sign, and he knows you. Just remember that. He knows you better than know you, so he knows He knows your potential. He knows what's in you. And he deliberately sends us into these uncomfortable situations. Is it because he hates us? No, it's not because he hates us. It's because in those moments we have when we feel like it could all fall apart at any second, we experience the deepest intimacy with him, and we learn to trust, and we learn to rely on him. And it's, you know, it's beautifully illustrated when Jesus calls the disciples. It's in Luke, it's Luke 5. And Jesus is surrounded by people in this particular story, but he notices these chaps on the shore, you know, drying out their nets, and he notices them, even though he's got a big crowd in front of him. He can see these guys on the shore, just doing their 9 to 5, just doing their thing. And I'm actually going to read, I'm going to read this little bit to you now. So it's Luke 5, if you want to make note of that and maybe read it during the week. Where we are, here we go. Right. So, okay, so he got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little from the shore. Then he sat down and he taught the people from the boat. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch." Simon answered, "Master, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything, but because you say so, I will let down the nets." When they had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. So they signalled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink. What a story. So, you know, he finishes speaking to the crowds. They pull away into the deep water, that place of risk, that place of uncertainty. You know, these guys had already done this, they'd already been out, they'd already put their nets down, nothing happened, you know, so clearly there's nothing there. But Jesus asks them to go back to that place, doesn't he? He asks them to go back. They're probably whispering to each other, who is this guy? What is he saying? You know, we're the professionals, what is going on here, you know? But they do it anyways, so they don't exactly understand why. But Simon is obedient, and he shows this, and he says this just very, very couple of words: "Because you say so." So do whatever he tells you to, you know, because you say so, Jesus. Yes, Jesus. And in the middle of the chaos, when the nets begin to break, isn't it funny, when it gets crazy and they feel out of their depth and they are about to sink, about to go into the water, that is the moment when they experience the miracle. That's when it all happens. And it's very similar to lots of, you know, things that we come up against in life, isn't it? It's the same with life. So when you're, if you compare it to maybe something that you know you might have gone through, when you're at your wit's end, you know where that is. You're at your wit's end with something, and all your backup plans have failed. You know, sink or swim. That's the situation. You know, and you're about to drown, and you cry out, "Lord, save me! Lord, save us!" The instructions, the guidance notes, the life jacket has all gone. The insurance policy won't even cover this drama. You know, that's all gone. That's all gone out the window. All those things that we possibly hold on to or we rely on, bang, it's gone. And that's when, you know, in that moment, Jesus just holds on to us, doesn't he? He holds on to us, and that's when you experience the greatest miracle and the greatest intimacy with him as well at that exact point. And if you're struggling stepping into water and exercising, you know, that faith at the moment that, you know, we talk about so much, maybe just try obedience, just one foot in front of the other, and listening to those prompts. It's in John 15 that obedience is worship. So it's not a bad word. Don't confuse it with, you know, I don't know, sort of control and submission and things. Obedience is actually worship, and it's out of love. And that's why it's said in wedding vows as well. So this week, maybe let's just step out and just say, just on a couple of occasions, you know, "Because you say so, Jesus." I'm not saying you're going to go around shouting it from corner to corner. Maybe you will. But, you know, just quietly, when you've got your quiet time, "Because you say so, Jesus. Even though I don't understand, let's just see what happens. Give it a go, you know." So yeah, so I hope you find that all. I hope you find that encouraging. I'm gonna draw to a close now, so you can enjoy your breakfast. And it's lovely to see you. Stay well, and we'll see you soon.